Today we're working on Chuck, our zero budget L300 Delica camper van build. Problem is the overboost valve is popping off the second you put your foot into it, making it almost undrivable on the freeway. So today we're gonna hook up a boost gauge, figure out what our boost is actually at, fix the boost problem. Of course, I blew most of our budget on important things like wheels and tires, so that doesn't really leave much left over for things like the boost gauge. Luckily, a buddy of mine had this broken G-Ready gauge sitting in his garage he let me have. I took it apart, glued the broken needle back on, and now, fingers crossed, this is gonna work. To install the gauge, the first thing we need to do is locate a good line to pull reference from. We're gonna tap into the wastegate actuator line because, well, we're reading boost pressure anyway, so kind of makes sense. Either one will work though. Now all we need to do is throw a T in line here. Budget says I need to use what I have. This is the closest I have. I have no idea if this T is actually going to handle the heat from the turbocharger because it originally came from a windshield washer fluid line. Well, we know where we're picking our boost up from, but now we need to know where we're sending it. I'm gonna take my gauge. I think I'm gonna mount it right here on the dash. On the Delica, I'm gonna run the line down the side here, underneath our trim pieces, and then into the engine bay. So that means doing a little bit of disassembly. Of course, when you start dismantling things, other stuff starts to show up. I really shouldn't poke this. I really shouldn't poke this. I'm gonna poke this. Oh boy. Oh no. Oh no. Next, we'll drill a hole to run the boost line through, and we need to add something for a little bit of protection. There's a lot of burrs around the outside here, so a grommet would be ideal. But if you don't have a grommet, you can use something like an old fuel line and just cut off a chunk and insert that in the hole. Then just route the line. Unfortunately, the van was missing this piece of trim and I didn't have one. But after a bit of scrounging around in my garage, I did manage to find a piece of flooring transition, which is just gonna have to do. I think it's safe to say that we've got a boost problem going on. As soon as we get to about 0.9 kilograms per centimeter square, or about 12 psi, our overboost valve is opening and we're getting extremely sporadic boost levels. So that could mean a couple of things. Now, all turbochargers function basically the same manner. Exhaust goes in here, spins the exhaust wheel in turn spins the compressor wheel, the compressor makes magic happen out here. But the problem is, if we get too much boost, then we blow up the engine. So, to limit the boost, most turbochargers will either have a built-in or an external wastegate. The wastegate's job is to simply bypass exhaust past the exhaust wheel to keep our boost levels constant. To do that, when boost levels get to the set pressure of the actuator will open up the wastegate. I have our compressor right now set at 20 psi, and if I add pressure, you can see the wastegate open. Now that you understand the internal workings of the turbocharger, you probably have already guessed what the potential problem could be and why we're overboosting. And that's right, our wastegate is probably not opening. Now there could be a few reasons for this. It could be just rusted shut, or our actuator might have a hole in it, or a blockage causing it to just not open. So the first thing that we're going to do is check our actuator and see if it's actually functioning the way that we want it to. I'm going to pull the line off the turbo, leaving the T in place because this way I can see what our pressure's at on our gauge. I've turned our compressor down to about 12 psi, put it into our line, and then pull the trigger. The rest of the system is really quite simple. We have our hose that attaches to our turbocharger, that runs along, goes underneath our intake here, and then to our actuator itself. So obviously our issue is somewhere in either the hose or the actuator. But I am noticing something. If we look very closely back here, that is our hose, which seems to be routed underneath this bracket. I'm going to unbolt our intake and see if that makes a difference. I think it's safe to say that that has our overboost problem sorted out. Our boost is now sitting stable, although it's a little bit lower than I wanted to see, but that's okay because I actually want to do a little bit of work to the pump and tune up the pump a little bit, give us a little bit more boost, and maybe try to get a little bit more power out of this van. So if that's something you want to see, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Otherwise, get out in the shop and do something. We'll see you next time.